Video tutorial for a raised flower, and we're going to be using 3 colours of crochet cotton, and I'm going to graduate my colours out for the crochet flower, and I'm using a 3mm hook, which is the right size for the size yarn that I'm using. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so I'm starting with my slip knot on my hook, and I'm wrapping the yarn around my hand, and I'm going to begin this pattern with 6 chains. So that's yarn around the hook and draw it back through the one that was on your hook. Yarn around the hook, draw it back through. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's my 6th chain, and there you can see the V's coming down the front of my work. I'm now going to put my hook into the bottom chain, so that's the V just above my thumb, and I'm going to be inserting my hook from right to left, and I'm going to be getting the 2 parts of the V on the top of my hook and the back section of the stitch on the back of my hook. So I'm just going to drop down, I'm going to go into that bottom stitch, through the first bit and out the second bit. You'll notice that I use my thumb quite a bit when I'm going into that first chain. I just find it a lot easier. So I've got my 2 parts of the V on the front of my hook, and if I turn it over, I've got the 1 back part of the stitch on the back of my hook. So I'm going to just twist that down so it's hanging from the bottom, and to do a slip stitch to make this into a ring, I'm going to wrap the yarn around the hook. If I just move that tail out of the way for you. Wrap the yarn around the hook, and then I'm going to draw it through both bits that were on my hook, and I've now created a ring. From that ring, I'm now going to do 5 chain. So that's yarn around the hook and draw it through. Yarn around the hook and draw it through. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5 chains. My pattern now asks me to do a treble and 2 chain. So a treble is wrapping the yarn around the hook, going down through the centre of your ring and out the back, grab the yarn, bring it back through your ring and give it a little bit of a wriggle until you can see clearly your 3 things around your hook. You're then going to wrap and draw through the first 2 and wrap and draw through the second 2. That's the treble. And then I do 2 chain. My pattern asks me to do a treble and 2 chain. So what I've got now is 5 chain at the beginning, which is going to act like a treble and 2 chain, and then I've got a treble stitch and 2 chain above it. My pattern asks me to repeat the treble and 2 chain so that I have 7 sets of it. So I've done the first set, I've now got to repeat that 6 times. So I'm now going to do that. So I've completed all of my repetitions of my treble and 2 chain, and I've now got effectively 8 sets. There's the first 5 chain, which is the first set, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And my pattern now asks for me to close this ring. So I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain up from this original 5 chain that we started with. So the easiest way to do this is to either count backwards from your treble or to count up from your bottom. And I'm looking for my 3rd chain. So it's 1, 2, it's this one here, 3. And when we put our hook into a stitch, we nearly always do it front to back unless we're told otherwise. So I'm just going to go into that stitch, through the first piece at the front, out the back piece, like so. So I've got that on my hook, and then I'm going to wrap and draw back through the chain stitch that I've inserted into, and back through the stitch that was on my hook, like so. And so if I lay my ring down and pull it out, looks a bit like a cartwheel at the moment. So we're going to be working round 2 now, and this is going to start shaping some of the petals. and we're going to be working a series of stitches into each of our chain 2 loops, which are the spaces between the trebles. So taking my tail out the way, wrapping the yarn around my hand, the first thing I'm going to do is a double crochet. For a double crochet, I put my hook into the 2 chain space, I bring the yarn back through, so I have 2 on my hook for a double, and I wrap and I bring through both. That's a double. I'm now going to do a chain, 1 chain. I'm now going to do 2 trebles. A treble is wrap, down through the space, grab the yarn and draw it back until you have 3 things on your hook. Wrap through the first 2, wrap through the second 2. And I need 2 trebles, so I'm going to repeat that process. Wrap the yarn around the hook, down through the chain space, grab the yarn and bring it back through. Wrap and go through the first 2, wrap and go through the second 2. I'm now going to do a chain, and I'm going to do a double crochet. So that's into the space and draw it back, wrap and draw it through both. And that is my first petal. So we're going to do that into each space, so I'll do another one. So we're going to do a double, into the space, draw your yarn through, wrap and bring it back through both. We're now going to do a chain and then 2 trebles, wrap, bring it down through the space, grab the yarn and draw it back, so you have 3 on your hook, wrap the yarn around your hook and draw it through 2, wrap the yarn around your hook and draw it through the last 2. That's the first treble. We're going to do another one. Wrap and down through the space, wrap and bring it back. Wrap through 2, wrap through 2. 1 chain and then a double to finish the petal. So each petal is made up of a double crochet to anchor at the beginning, a chain, 2 trebles, a chain, and then a double at the end. I'm just going to redo that double. Didn't want to come, so undo and restart, and that time it did it really easily. So you can see we've got our petals beginning to form. So I'm now going to do the rest of the petals all the way around my flower. Okay, so my petals are all now finished. So to finish off this round and this colour, I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the original double crochet. So I'm just going to find that stitch, put my hook into it, so I've got the 2 bits on top, wrap the yarn around the hook, come back through that stitch and what is already on my hook, that's the slip stitch. Then I'm going to trim my thread, and I'm just going to draw that through to fasten off. And there is the first round of my flower. Okay, so we've our first round finished and I've loaded the new colour onto my hook. This is the front of my work and I've got stitches just wrapping around to the front side, and this is the back of my work, and if you put your finger in there they almost sort of curl away from you. You can see you can make them, just by putting your thumb in, you can make them look a little bit more petal-like. So we're going to start by working on the wrong side of our work, and I've got my new colour loaded on my hook and I'm just going to wrap that colour around my hand. Then I'm going to pick my work up and I'm going to hold my work so that I can put my hook, behind one of the stems like so. And at this stage I'm going to try and hold both of my tails of my yarn. I'm going to wrap one around my hook and I'm just going to draw it through everything to get me anchored. So there I've introduced the new colour to my work by wrapping around the stem. From here I'm going to do 6 chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, So we've got 6 chain coming up, and you've got a few tails going on. You've just got to learn to ignore those a little bit. From there, that's effectively going to be a treble and 3 chain. So I've now got to do a treble and 3 chain around each of the rest of these stems. So I'm going to wrap, I'm going to put my hook around the stem, so it's going into my work and coming out the other side. I'm going to draw it back through, and I should have 3 things on my hook, like so. If you give it a bit of a wriggle and a jiggle, I'm then going to wrap and draw through the first 2, wrap and draw through the second 2, and then I'm going to chain 3. So just to show you that again, so you're going to wrap, go behind the stem, grab the yarn and bring it back, a wriggle and a jiggle to see your 3 stitches, and then you're going to wrap and go through the first 2, wrap and go through the second 2, and then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And I'm now going to do that round each stem, working my way around the flower until I'm back at the beginning. So I've now gone all the way around the back, and you'll notice that you're starting to create this kind of raised effect, or you can squish it down and it sits nicely against the back. So I've just finished the 3 chain, and what I've got to do now is join that into the 3rd chain up from my initial chain out. So I'm just going to count 3 chain, 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to slip stitch in by putting my hook into the chain stitch, trying to grab both sides as I do it, like so, and then taking the yarn and wrapping it and drawing it through both that stitch and the one that's on my hook. So I'm just going to take it through that stitch first, and then the one that was on my hook. That's nice and tight. Brilliant, there we are. So as soon as we've done that slip stitch, we need to turn our work. So I'm just going to flip my hook around as well, because we need to make sure that when we start to create the petals, they are going to be coming with the right side, on the right side of our flower. So we need to turn the work around so that we are working to the right side. So from where I am, I'm going to build my petals by doing a double crochet first. So I'm going into the hole that's to the left of my hook, drawing back through, wrapping and going through the 2. I'm then going to do a chain, and then for this round we're going to do 3 trebles into each chain space. So I'm going to wrap, go into the space, draw it back through, then wrap and go through the first 2, wrap and go through the second 2. So that's wrap and go through the space, draw it back so you've got your 3 on your hook, and then wrap and go through the first 2, wrap and go through the second 2. Just do the 3rd treble, and then we're going to do a chain, and then we're going to do a double crochet to finish it off, just like we did on the flower petals for the round below. And if I pop that down on the table, you can see that that petal is standing out the back, and it's now slightly bigger than the petal in front of it. And all of your stems here have been, you can see your other colour beginning to come through. So if you didn't want to see this effect here, the bit that we've done with the chains and the trebles, you could do in your original colour, and then you could just build the petals out in your new colour. But I think it's quite fun to see the colour change down here as well. So we're going to work those all around our petal spaces now. So each of these spaces, we're going to be putting in 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 3 trebles, 1 chain and 1 double crochet. And I'm going to work that round all of my flower now, and catch you at the end. Okay, so I finished all of my petals, and I've now just got to slip stitch into the double crochet of the first petal and finish off, and then that's that colour finished as well. So just find the right end, put my hook into that first stitch, draw the yarn back through and back through, trim the yarn off, and then I'm just going to pull it through to finish off. And there we go, that's the second round done. So now I'm going to be loading up with my final colour, which is this deeper crimson colour, to give it a bit of a pop on the final round. So let's get started and load that onto our hook. Okay, so we're now going to work with our third and final colour. So I've loaded that onto my hook already, and I'm just going to pick my project up and I'm going to look at it from the wrong side, just like we did before. And I'm going to put my hook behind one of the stems from the row round that I've just completed, and I'm then just going to wrap the yarn around my hand. Just find all those different pieces, and then holding the tail as well at the same time, I just find it easier. I'm going to pull that, I'm going to wrap the yarn around the hook and just pull that through the stem and the one that was on my hook at the same time. So in a very similar fashion to how we completed and constructed round 2, we're going to do a chain to start with, and for this round it is going to be a chain of 7. So let's wrap and pull through 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and that will end up representing a treble and a 4 chain. So the repeat that we're going to use now into all of the rest of our stems is a treble and a 4 chain. So I'm going to wrap the yarn around my hook, put it behind the next stem, draw it back, check that I've got my 3, which I have. I'm going to wrap and draw through the first 2, and then wrap and draw through the second 2. And then I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a wrap and go through the next stem to start our treble, bring it back through, check that you've got 3 things on your hook, which I have. So it's a wrap and draw through the first 2, and then a wrap and draw through the second 2, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4 chains to move on. So I'm now going to go around the rest of my flower doing trebles and 4 chains for each stem, and then I'll be back to join up where I was at the beginning. So I've gone all the way around, and I now need to join off for the last part of this particular round. So having completed my last 4 chain, I'm now going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain up on that initial 7 chain. So I'm just going to count 3 and put my hook in so, and pull through both pieces, and that's my slip stitch to hold it complete. So now I'm going to twist my work, turn it around to the right side, because now we're onto the petals, and these are just like we've done on previous rounds, but we're increasing the number of trebles going into each space. So we've created a space of 4 chains this time, so this time we're going to fill it with 4 trebles. So if you've been following how the pattern's grown, each time we've increased the spacing for the chain between the stems, and in each round we've increased the number of trebles for each petal. So first things first, it's a double. So do a double, that's in, pull it back, and then draw through both. Then a chain, and then I'm going to do 4 trebles into this chain space. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's a chain and a double. And that chain and the double, they're really important because basically they're shaping the curve on this petal for you. So I'm going to go round now, and in each of my chain spaces at the back, I'm going to be putting in a double crochet, a chain, 4 trebles, a chain and a double crochet, and then I'll see you at the end. So I've been around and all of my petals are now formed. So as with the other rounds, all we've got to do now is fasten off. So we're just going to do a slip stitch into the first double crochet we did on the first petal. So I'm just going to put my hook in there, bring it back through and bring it back through what was on my hook. And then I'm just going to snip my tail, and then I'm just going to draw that through the loop that is on my hook, like so. Okay, so there's our flower all completed. We've got some ends to get rid of, so I'm just going to show you what I would normally do with my ends. Just going to thread up a darning needle, get that fed through there, and then those ends are just going to get stitched around into the base of that petal. So I'm just going to push that in and pull that through. And so it's completely hidden and it's nicely tucked in, and I will just see if I can't get that needle. Just be really careful that you don't lose the yarn at the end. Back in and thread it in a bit further. And I'm now going to go through and do all of my darning in of the ends. Okay. So there we go. Our crocheted layered flower is now all complete. Nice and tidy on the back, and on the front we've just got a little bit of that middle layer showing through. If you don't like that, you can get rid of it by just extending round 3 in the same colour as your first 2 rounds. But nature's actually a little bit like that. This project was inspired by some Sweet Williams that we've got in the house at the moment, and you'll see that they are showing different layers and levels of pink, so I actually quite like the fact that that middle layer shows through. So I really hope you've enjoyed this project, and if you get to make any, I would love to see them. You can email them into us, or you might like to tag us. We're on social media, Instagram and Facebook, and the tag is @Made and Making. Take care. Bye.